We'd like to call the work session to order of March 1st. Treasurer Eldridge isn't here, and he will be coming late, and Attorney Winters is not here yet. So we're going to just review the agenda. All right. Are there any public comment? No? The next item is a consent agenda, which are the minutes and statements and checks. I had given a few corrections.
Is your microphone on?
I'm sorry?
Is your microphone on?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Pardon. I should put this back on. Do I have to put this on while I'm talking? Anyways, I can't breathe when I do that. Under new business, we have the request to approve the preliminary site plan for Stage 1 plan development approval for Range USA. Jason?
Good evening, trustees, Madam Supervisor. Jason Icowangeli, the Township's Planning Director. Before you this evening is a Stage 1 PD project that would be Range USA, which is a 15,000 square foot indoor shooting range and retail space for firearm sales. They're looking at locating at 660 James L. Hart Parkway. This is sort of a interesting parcel, as it currently right now is just a parking lot for the Burning Bush.
Is it just firearm sale, or is it a shooting range?
Yeah, it's a shooting range and firearm sales. I believe that they're going to have 20 lanes in that building for firearms or target shooting or shooting sports, if you will. And this site is about 2.7 acres, and it's located just to what would be the east of the existing we say Burning Bush, but it's Bank Supply. People know it sort of as both, depending. And so they're looking to retrofit that space to include this new building and business, which a copy of the site plan was included in your packet. So before you this evening would be, for your consideration, is the preliminary site plan for the building itself, and then included in there was a draft of the PD agreement, which would be tied to the plan. And there's no action required this evening on the PD agreement. It's just so that you kind of have an idea of what the agreement will look like in its final form. There may be additions added to that agreement as we kind of head down the home stretch, if anything comes up in final site plan or detailed engineering that would want to be included in that. But so far to date, these folks have met all of the conditions of the existing zoning district in which it's classified, which is PD. From a landscaping and parking perspective, they've met all those requirements. Some of the things that we've asked for, in addition to what would normally be asked for on this site, were we asked that they provide 2 EV electronic vehicle parking spaces as a part of the overall parking, and that they consider using native landscaping treatments, Michigan plants that don't require any kind of irrigation or things like that. And then the other part of this project, which we think is a benefit, is they're going to actually be eliminating some of the impervious surface and replacing it back to green space as a part of this development. So parts of the parking lot will be removed in order to install landscaping around the base of the building. So the roof of the building will function much the same as the parking lot does, with water, stormwater runoff, but there will be newer parts around the outside of the building that will now be green that weren't previously, that will actually reduce some of that rainwater, which we can all use right now. And so also they've done a good job of meeting all of the building material requirements that the township has as a part of its standards. They'll be using a high quality masonry material on the front of the building. This building doesn't have a lot of glass, as they want to keep it secure. So for security reasons, there's not a lot of real windows in this building, and the ones that are very much way up at the top where they can't be reached by someone unless they were, say, standing on a ladder or something like that. And then there'll be only one point of public entry into this building, which would be in the front. So security, and they'll be here this evening to speak to you about their project at the regular meeting, but security obviously is one of their top priorities, making sure that this establishment stays safe. They have a couple of these stores already in the state of Michigan, so this isn't a one-off firearms retailer. They're a regional Midwestern company. I believe they have 35 stores now in the United States, so they have sort of a good track record as far as building these facilities and the safety aspects of it, and a lot of thought and time goes into it. So we're very comfortable from a planning perspective about the company as a whole and their record. And so they will be providing exterior and interior cameras. We really didn't have to ask them for that. That's a part of their business model. And then the other thing is they tend to hire people who are retired military and police to work at their stores. And that's actually who they cater to, is people who are active military and police. And so I believe at their Wixom store, the local police agencies utilize that facility to do a lot of their training. And I'm sure they'll speak a little bit to that tonight. So if you have any questions about the site plan, I'd be happy to go over any issues that you might have ahead of the meeting, or answer any questions that you might have.
Madam Chair.
Trustee Newman?
Just had a couple questions. I saw where the property was zoned as a residential, but the district itself is a B3 zoning district.
So it's actually zone PD, or planned development,
Okay.
which can be both commercial or residential. Planned development just is a zoning district that requires a legal agreement that binds the developer and the township to whatever, terms that might be a part of the overall site plan. So this is a commercial PD. There's no residential zoning. And then further, the PD agreement that was used for Burning Bush and Bank Supply, basically, and then the zoning ordinance itself states that all of the uses that would be in the underlying zoning are the uses that would fall into the PD for that particular use. And so the underlying zoning of this property used to be B3, which is a commercial, highest and best commercial use the township has. And indoor recreation uses and retail sales are permitted uses in that district.
Okay.
We typically, Trustee Newman, we typically use PDs for residential developments. They're more so used in the township for residential, but they're not exclusive to residential. We sometimes use them in these instances for commercial or industrial development. Not nearly as much as we do for residential. It's probably like a 4-to-1 ratio of residential to commercial applications of PD in the township.
So it can be either or.
That's right. Yep.
Are the Girl Scouts still down there, Girl Scout headquarters?
That's now a LaFontaine Kia dealership. So
Okay.
it used to be a dealership previously, and then it was the Girl Scouts office for a while, and now it's back to being a car dealership.
Okay, and last question. Let's see. It'll come back.
That's
to
all
me.
right, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I'll be available at the regular meeting, as will
Okay.
the applicant. But also just for some of the other items like soundproofing and vapor and, the smells or any of those types of things, the range uses state-of-the-art technology to where they use, vapor mitigation through air cleaning systems, and it's very high-end, state-of-the-art. And then as far as the sound goes, you won't be able to hear the range from the parking lot. Now, you might be able to hear it inside the building, but you wouldn't hear it per se from outside where you would park the car. So
Okay. Yeah, I know what it was. I read that the property was controlled by Burning Bush, but it was owned by Bank Supplies.
Well, actually, Burning Bush owned it, and then they sold it to the Girl Scouts.
Okay,
And then the Girl Scouts owned it, the Bank Supply. There were 2 lots. They split the one parcel,
Okay.
and it sits between La Fontaine and the bank.
bank supply building,
And
okay.
there's that, remember they split their parcel, and it was Zone B3, which this use is allowed.
Okay, yes, yep.
Fontaine is on the,
Yeah, if you look at
To the
that picture,
east.
they're split. To the east is the La Fontaine, and then there's a stormwater basin on that
Yes.
vacant property, and then there's a parking lot that used to be tied to
right,
Burning Bush, now Bank Supply.
yeah. And it used to be Point Blank Shoot? Point Shoot.
Yeah, originally that was the name of the
And now
company,
they've changed the name of it, which I'm glad they,
to Range USA.
yeah, I'm glad they did. And
Oh, really?
so,
Okay.
yeah, it used to be Point Blank Shoot.
Point Shoot Blank or
Yeah.
something?
Shoot Point Blank was the original name of their business,
Yeah,
and
we
they
never
changed
did
that model, so, yeah. Very good move on their part, I
So we
think.
didn't, I'm glad to see that they changed the name. Jason, perhaps you could explain, because there's 2 denials here?
Yep, that's a good point, and I knew that you would bring that question up, and I'm glad that you did. For the preliminary site plan, YCUA's comments and the fire department comments are tied to more of the detailed engineering, and those comments have since been worked out and approved since that time. So they were engineering comments that they would be able to address at the time of final, and so at the time, we made the decision that preliminarily, the plans were ready to go to the Planning Commission for a preliminary approval. And it was just, the comments from YCUA had to do with the width of the water main, the size of the pipe. And so it was just a comment that could be addressed at the
And
time of
Dan's was about fire hydrant.
fire hydrants. And they have addressed those comments and given Dan the fire hydrant coverage that he requires, which is 3 fire hydrants.
So the PD Stage 1 is just to kind of show the layout of the building, and it meets a proper zoning. And the board, when it comes to detailed, it will come back to PD.
It will, yep.
Stage 2, and that will show all
Finals,
the approvals.
that's right.
And the renderings will be there, or will they have renderings?
Yeah,
tonight?
they'll have renderings this evening as
Okay.
well. Yep, and you're absolutely right. So this will come back before the board for PD Stage 2, which will be final site plan and a final development agreement with all of the outside agency permits being obtained at that time. And so at this time, they've got all of those in hand. At the time that this director's report was written, YCUA and the fire department still had some outstanding concerns with the water main, but those have since been addressed. And so the new zoning ordinance actually addresses this sort of where if there are some detailed engineering comments that are still left at the time of preliminary, it can still get to the Planning Commission to kind of help an applicant at least determine that a project is viable before they kind of move forward with all the detailed engineering, which really costs a lot of money. So we felt at the time that those comments would be, could be addressed at the time of engineering. And we had them write us a letter as much that they acknowledged those comments and that they were going to address them at the time of final prior to sending them to the Planning Commission.
So Ann Arbor has a indoor shooting range,
Ann Arbor Arms,
and so does, I think, Taylor, is that?
perhaps.
So there was one other place locally. Is it Van Buren? Okay, okay. And we have an outdoor shooting range over at the
Washtenaw Sportsman's?
Washtenaw Sportsman, which is on, not far.
No, it's
Well, there's a
not.
lot of woods in between them, but, so people can get their CPL certification and training too, I think.
Oh, yeah. Education is one of their larger components. They'll have classroom facilities inside of this building. And it's my understanding that they're the largest provider of CPL classes to women in the Midwest. So that's
It's
their,
allowed by zoning. It's properly zoned and everything to be in this location.
it is, yep. It was their permitted principal uses in the district.
And the planning commission approved it.
They did, and they recommended that the board approve Stage 1 PD approval at their meeting. And then, again, this would come back before you for stage 2 approval with a final development agreement and a final site plan, which they're actively working to get all of those documents. They'd like to break ground on this project by the end of April, beginning of May, and then they'd like to have their building, they said it takes about 120 days for construction.
No, thank you. I was just going to ask about Dan Kimball's recommendation in the fire hydrants, but it
There
sounds
was
like
some,
that's been resolved.
there's an existing fire hydrant out at the street, and Dan had asked for 2 more internal fire hydrants, and they complied with that. And there was just some water main adjustments that Scott asked as a part of supplying those fire hydrants. Because Scott and Dan sometimes run up against each other. Dan wants fire hydrants. Scott doesn't want long dead ends of water main because the water quality gets poor when you have a really long dead end. That's why they always want to loop a system of water so it stays fresh. And what Dan was asking for was going to cause one of these longer dead ends of water to the fire hydrant, but they were able to work out those issues and agreed to the terms. So both Dan and Scott Westover, their comments have been satisfied.
I guess the only other thing, Jason, I know you mentioned their windows and their security, but I know that you've put a lot of work into making sure that the outside of their building looks, appealing to the eye. And at
Yeah.
first, I think their color scheme was different, and you've worked a lot with them to make sure
Yeah,
it
their
looks
first
good.
go at the facade was going to use like a lot of this orange color that's sort of their primary color for their business, part of their branding, if you will. And we tried to have them scale back a little bit on the use of the orange. There will still be some orange as a part of the facade treatment, but not nearly as much as there was before. And then the other part about the building is we requested that they use a fake glass called spandrel glass to take so the top will actually be a real glass window, but as it comes down towards the base of the building and the sidewalk, it will be fake. So when you pull up to the building, it looks like it has glass windows across the front, but the only part that's real glass that would let daylight in is at the very top of the building. The rest of it is like a fake glass that looks like a window from the outside, but there really is no access into the building through it. There's just a wall behind it. So it helps really break up the front of the building architecturally, but still allow some natural light to get inside into the retail floor. Because that will be the only side of the building that actually has windows is the front. None of the other 3 sides will have windows on them.
Are you fine, Jim?
Two questions.
Sure.
What's the total cost to the township
As far as,
the building of
Investment.
investment?
oh, I'm sorry. That's a good question. Let me get the construction cost estimate, and I can tell you.
They'll probably talk about it and how many employees.
Yeah, I believe that they plan on having somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 full-time employees as a part of that, the business model that they have. But I can tell you what the projected cost estimate of the building is from at least the standpoint of the site improvements in the building.
Okay. And do they have a picture, a drawing or rendering of what they propose? I know the site
Yeah,
plan.
let me,
Yeah, they'll have it at the
Okay.
board meeting, right?
Yeah.
they will, yeah, they should be bringing a thumb drive, and Lisa's always been kind enough to project that.
All right. Thank you.
But let me give you, while I'm here, I'd be happy to give you the cost opinion. So this comes from Kimberly Horn. This is their engineering company doing these numbers. But they have the total cost of construction. This includes everything from water main, sanitary sewer, storm, sidewalks, bike paths, the grading, all of that type of work is about 320,000. That's just the site work. That doesn't include the building itself. That's just the site planning. Let me see if they have a cost opinion on the building.
We'll probably talk about this.
Yeah, I was going to say the cost estimate usually on the building comes through the building permit side.
But they'll
But
talk about it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to find that information between now and the regular meeting in BSNA, because they have applied for a building permit, and as a part of that, they put the cost of construction on there, so I'll definitely get you an answer to that question. But I would say their engineer has the site work pad at about $320,000. And then if my guess is that the building is going to probably be in that same neighborhood.
What's the square footage?
15,000 square feet, including all the, mechanical equipment, high-end mechanical equipment that they'll need in order to help mitigate firing firearms inside of a building, which produces that, sort of sulfur smell, gunpowder when you fire a gun or a weapon, so.
All right. Cool. Any other questions?
I don't know, maybe in my own ignorance. So when you sell firearms, is there an entity that allows for people to sell firearms? Like if you can't just go set up shop and sell liquor without the state of Michigan governing that. Is there a governing body that watches over the policies? Because if there's a violation in the way those things are sold, is the burden on us, or is there some other entity that's going to help us?
It's regulated by the federal government. So you have to have what they call an FFL, or a federal firearms license, to be a dealer. And there's different levels of dealerships. And I don't know the specifics behind it, so I don't want to try to, but that's how it's regulated. And so they'll have a class of licensure through the federal government in order to sell firearms. And then they'll have to provide the background checks and everything pursuant to federal law, and make sure that they, check people's age and all the other stuff that would go into purchasing a firearm at, say, a Cabela's or a Dunham's or someplace else that might sell firearms. But no, the township wouldn't have any responsibility in that. It's between them and the federal government and the sale. I mean, we would obviously get involved if something happened, like someone broke into it or, those types of things. But it will be up to them to responsibly, sell firearms pursuant to the federal laws.
And with zoning, we don't even have, like if they were to have violations where they didn't do what they were supposed to be regulating, that doesn't really impact our ability to.
In my capacity as the planning director these years, we from time to time get contacted by the Detroit office of the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, where they do these checks of the licensure, and they go in and they check how the weapons are stored and the ammunition and the background checks, and they're pretty meticulous as to who these licenses go to and how they inspect these facilities to make sure that they're on a regular basis, that they're following all the federal laws. So our local office for Ypsilanti Township is out of Detroit. And they have a handful of inspectors that I've met over the years or have communications with whenever someone, is looking to get an FFL license in the township. Sure.
Jason, my understanding is that individuals can sell them too. Like you can sell them out of your home.
You can.
And you can get
Yeah, they can go as small as, some of the licensure doesn't allow for people, and I'm kind of getting into the weeds on this, so bear with me, but they allow people to receive firearms where people have to purchase them from a firearms dealer off the internet, and the people are licensed to receive them securely and then verify that the person who purchased it off the internet is the person that it's supposed to be delivered to. That's sort of like the ground level license that you can have, where you're not allowed to sell them retail wise, but you're allowed to receive them from a retailer and verify that the person who's coming to receive the firearm is in fact the person who went through the background check and all those other types of things. And you have to get a license to even do that, and they verify all the credentials of people who have that license as well.
I don't think their goal is to sell the 8K.
That would be something you'd want to ask their representative, but I don't think that's,
I didn't get that because it was for training and everything.
yeah,
So
I think it's
never got they were
for
gonna be,
responsible, Second Amendment gun
army.
ownership. I think they sell long guns and handguns for responsible firearms and that type of a thing.
Madam Chair? This is Kaiser. I don't want to step on her, but I just want to make a statement.
Go ahead.
Okay. Jason, as you know, I've heard the plan, but I just want to tell the board that myself and Larry Doe kind of asked about security. When they come, you'll see their site plan. They don't have a dock. Is that correct? They have a back door. So when they're bringing all this equipment in, our question was about security. Of course, like, they're going to have security there. But cautiously, we asked them, will there be security at that door bringing in those kind of guns in our area? You never know what happened. But my understanding said that it was going to be well secured.
Okay.
Just a comment.
Thank you, Gloria. Ms. Kaiser, did you have a comment, honey? Ma'am, miss?
Yes, my question is the security inside the building and outside because of the clientele anymore. It's not always honest people who are going there just to shoot, to shop. You never know what is lurking around. In this day and time, there's so many crazy things going on. What type of security will they have outside? If any.
I don't know. I've been to a shooting range before. I don't recall seeing a large presence of police or anything.
Well, I think,
I'm assuming everyone's armed in there.
yeah, I can try to answer that question. I think they try to make sure that the parking lot is well lit and that there's cameras outside of the building, but the merchandise is very secure. And then to your point, Supervisor Stumbo, the people who work there typically carry. And then the other thing is they like to make relationships with local law enforcement. And so they're happy when law enforcement trains at the facility and they have sort of that presence of seeing a sheriff's department vehicle in the parking lot. And so and I'm not trying to make a sales pitch on their behalf, but the Planning Commission, as Trustee Peterson mentioned, vetted them very well at the Planning Commission level, and they have no record of any incidences at any of their facilities. People are very aware that this isn't sort of the environment that you want to go into and try and shoplift, because the people have an overwhelming awareness of, and there's one point of entry, and then also to Miss Trustee Peterson's point, they don't receive shipments of firearms like you would think, where a truck pulls up and there's like a pallet that gets unloaded and there's like 100 guns inside of it. The stuff that they sell is very high-end equipment, and when they get a shipment from a firearms dealer, they come from that specific manufacturer, and they may only be getting 3 or 4 of something at one time, but due to how expensive they are and who the firearm manufacturer might be. So there's never a situation where there's, say, just a truck and people unloading ammunition or crates of weapons into the building. They'll typically have someone come from a manufacturer during the day when they're open with a small boot van, is what they mentioned to us, not a big 18-wheeler type delivery, and they'll bring in a small shipment of firearms based on an order that was made by the company. So they're never dealing with large quantities of firearms at one time.
Ms. Kaiser?
Well, the thing of it is, security on the outside also. You may have all these people inside with guns, but people coming in could have a gun for for whatever purpose. But you also have, if that's my understanding, the yellow is I-94 behind. So you have a good exit point, get in, get out, and off they go. And if people can get into churches with guns and do what they've done, what is the possibility of that here? I know everybody in there is probably going to have a gun on them, but, and I am for carrying guns, so.
Those are good questions, and I think the applicant would be happy to also address some of your concerns too.
I mean, I know there's Cabela's and that kind of stuff, but that's kind of way out and about where you've got, you know, houses across the expressway and
No,
that
they're
kind of
not,
thing.
they're businesses.
On the other side of the expressway are businesses, not houses.
Oh, you mean in the city? Oh, okay. That's, I don't know if I go that.
Jason, they're keeping that tree buffer too between the two, you think?
Yeah, really the only portion of that property that's going to change is, if you can see on that aerial that's on the screen where the number is in the center of the parking lot. That's where the building is going to go, and they don't anticipate changing any of the landscaping that's existing or anything that would go up the slope towards I-94. They won't be touching any of that.
What their, like, hours of operation are, have they said that?
Yes, I believe that they are open Monday through Sunday, and I want to say that they are open from, and you can ask Mr. Knuckles, is the gentleman that'll be here this evening, but I believe they're open from 10 to 10 on Monday through Saturday, and then I believe they close at 6 p.m. on Sunday, 10 to 6. But I believe those are the store hours.
Maybe you can get with them before they come, Jason, and ask them to
Yes,
address.
I can.
I think they will, but I'm not, it's just not in the report, so we don't.
No, I will definitely do that.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Jason, would you mention about the, some of the environmental things you had mentioned? You said 2 electric vehicle spaces, and then you mentioned something about native plants.
Yeah, we're just requesting that they use native plant species for any of the plantings that they do around the building that don't require irrigation. They'll likely still have irrigation, but these are like drought-tolerant, hardy plants that if they're planted here in Michigan will survive without having to be watered on a regular basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Could you speak into the microphone?
He also mentioned because they're removing some of the parking lot, typically environmentally, the water just runs off that, right? I thought you mentioned that part too.
yeah.
So one advantage too environmentally is that some of the flat surface that would run off in a parking lot is going to be planting, so it would be better for the environment in that way too, if I heard you right.
Yeah, we're
right?
decreasing the stormwater on this project, yeah, because we'll be installing some landscaping where it doesn't exist now. So it's a good reuse of an existing parking lot.
All right. We look forward to meeting.
Thanks.
Your attention to like the coloring and the way things are going to look. Thank you for that, for looking out for the community in that way.
Yeah, no, the planning commission really, I don't want to take all the credit, but the planning commission and trustee Peterson can attest, they do a very good job of making sure that the building materials are consistent with the neighborhood and of a high quality so that we're left with a nice building. In years to come, if they stop being a gun range and it's something else, they'll be left with a nice brick building that, you know, will look consistent with everything else that's over there on James L. Hart Parkway.
Thank you. General legal update, Mr. Winter?
Actually have a graph that I was going to have Lisa put on the board now, just to save time.
Or what? A draft?
Sorry? A graph
Okay.
I just want to talk about. I'm sorry? maybe kind of turn a little bit sideways. Actually, I did. I'm very proud of my graph, although it's kind of cockeyed. At least I didn't. Huh? Yeah. I did this. I'll wait for this. Rotate. I got pictured, but I guess I just thought it'd be nice to show the audience. Okay. It's my graph. Yeah. Well, I did this back in 2019 before this board came to office, and it was designed to show the different pathways to actually achieve what we always talk about as a neighborhood stabilization. And this may not be all-inclusive, but the purpose and intent behind this was to show that there are a number of different avenues the township has embarked upon to try and achieve this overarching goal of neighborhood or community stabilization. And tonight, for example, there are two agenda items having to do with two properties that are subject to the padlock statutes, in which there are two properties that were involved in very extensive drug dealing, and under the Michigan law, the township has the legal authority to padlock those cases. In fact, one of them has already been resolved and will probably be sold by the homeowner in the months ahead. The second one is currently in circuit court. But as you look through this little graph wheel, you'll see that there are a number of spokes, I guess, that all play an important part in trying to achieve this overarching goal. We've had a very lengthy and storied relationship with Habitat for Humanity, going back to everything from exercising our right of first refusal to acquire properties at the time when the township had the most record number of foreclosures in Washtenaw County. At one time, we had 1/3 of the foreclosures countywide. At one point in time, we were averaging 15 foreclosures per week. And the township tried to buy as many of those as we could, and we ended up creating, for lack of a better way of saying this, a de facto land bank, because we bought as many as we could at the time. It became available, even though Habitat could not purchase those at the time. We township held those until we sold them to Habitat. And going from that time period, 2007, 2008, through the last few years, I don't know the exact number. I know that Rob Nisley from time to time would give us updates, and so would Sarah. But there's no question we had a tremendous amount of stabilization throughout various neighborhoods in the township in which Habitat purchased the home, invested significantly in upgrading the home, and then sold it to, for the most part, the first-time homeowners. So again, the Habitat for Humanity played a significant role in achieving this goal. Clark East Towers is something that I ran out of time over the last few days to do a follow-up letter. Clark East Towers is our senior high-rise, as all of you know, and we've worked with them over the years to make sure that they address all public health and safety matters that come up. In the past, there has been significant issues that have ranged from even bed bug infestations to fire to issues that we're just not paying attention to in regards to the comings and goings. They invested a number of years back, maybe 6 years ago, over $12 to $14 million in funds. They upgraded that Clark East Towers significantly. The township weighed in and supported that application with MISTA at the time. And in fact, they received those funds and reinvested them accordingly. And I did give you kind of a preview of what is to come, because right now, while their pilot ordinance is not scheduled to expire until 2028, it seems like a long ways away, this being 2022. But I've already started the dialogue with them renewing or extending our pilot ordinance, because we do not want to see these properties go into what they call a market rate situation, like happened up here in Ypsilanti with Cross Village, the old Ypsilanti High School. That started out as being low-cost senior housing. They did their 15 years, and I have a number of articles where we've had other properties in the township move away from quote-unquote affordable housing to now a market rate. I believe that Clark East Towers would like to continue to operate this way, but I would feel better about doing it sooner rather than later, only because in fact, many people actually ended up moving from Cross Village apartments and not Cross Street there in the city to Clark East Towers as a result of not being able to afford the increased rents when they went to market rate. So again, Clark East Towers plays a significant role in trying to maintain neighborhood stabilization, at the same time trying to keep our seniors living nearby where they have many times their children and grandchildren, and it's just an important component of that stabilization. Banks are ones that I think at one time the township probably filed a lawsuit against every bank that I'm aware of in this state or in this country. They are the ones, if you recall, received billions of dollars in bailout funds from what they call the Troubled Asset Resources Program. Its acronym is TARP. And they ended up being in a situation where they foreclosed on people, put people out of their homes, and then turned around and got reimbursed 100% on the mortgage bid, on the bad mortgage loans, but did nothing to work with people to stay in their homes. I did send over an example this past week or so of a property in Ivanhoe that is owned by J.P. Morgan, and they've reached out to me, and I responded to them. That property has been vacant to the extent that it may very well have to be demolished. That's not what our goal is. Our goal is to have these properties rehabilitated and to be a viable housing stock, especially in this market where housing inventory is at an all-time low, the demand is at an all-time high, and we can't. It's not a good result for us to have to see a house demolished, because it becomes demolition by neglect, because that's what happens. And that's where the rental inspections, the next little thing, becomes important, because we were doing a tremendous job in keeping up with the rental inspections and properties that had to be maintained per the property maintenance code and building codes. The COVID kind of threw a monkey wrench into that situation for a while, because we had to sort of step back and couldn't go into some of the properties. But through the rental inspections, both multifamily and single family, that's where we many times come across properties that we try to be proactive to bring them up to code while the properties are still going to be able to be functioning as single family homes. The right of first refusal I touched on, that was with the county treasurer. We also have right of first refusal that we signed up with HUD. Whenever certain properties are going into foreclosure, we have what we call the right of first refusal, where we raise our hand first to say we'll buy it for the existing amount that's owed. We don't take the house and sell it for a profit. We only sell it to, again, a Habitat or some other type of nonprofit organization that they came along for the same amount that we actually purchased it for, with the understanding that they bring it into compliance and sold, hopefully, to a new family. And there's been many, many success stories because of that program. New development is also a key component to achieving community stabilization. We look to our new housing stock as also being one that can provide certain types of infrastructure improvements. We're currently in negotiations with Creekside Village North, which is a new development on the Merritt Road, Tuttle Hill Road corridor. And we're looking for them to contribute significantly for a community benefit in the form of dollars that can be leveraged into doing sometime in the near future for maybe perhaps a roundabout. So all these different components here, I think all roads lead to neighborhood stabilization. None of this would be possible without the endorsement of the Township Board, making this a high priority, making this part of your stated policy objective. And I will say, whether it's been the Office of Community Standards, the Building Department, Planning Department, all the people that work in the township and these staffing levels, clerk levels, Township Board members, obviously, all this can only be successful when everybody is, rowing in the same direction. I think that's what's made this so successful. In fact, we got a phone call just yesterday from some of the city attorneys in Ann Arbor wanting us to provide them with copies or sample copies of our public nuisance lawsuits that we've been using over the years because they have some issues with some properties and they did not quite know the best way to proceed. And so we've shared with them what we've learned. And but again, I like the graph. I think it looks pretty nice myself, never wanted to really excel in art, so therefore anything that comes out kind of even as opposed to being outside the lines, I feel particularly, I'm proud of. And it's kind of a segue because I know the agenda's kind of light tonight, and you want to hear it now maybe rather than later. But we have had a tremendous amount of progress in regards to the Aspen Chase and the Villas apartment complexes over here on Gulf Side. Those are two large apartment complexes that are owned by McKinley Properties, in which we have had thousands of calls for service over the last 3 years. They have agreed, and they're currently in the process, I say they, McKinley Properties, they're installing what they call a license plate reader system, as well as new security cameras. They're being installed on their property at their expense. They have reached out to the county sheriff, and they are going to share that technology with the sheriff's deputies who are going to be trained on using that technology. Sheriff Clayton has developed a very well-detailed policy as to how the license plate reader system can be utilized by the Washtenaw County Sheriff's deputies. We have reviewed it. Paul, the prosecutor from our office, has reviewed it. And this, again, is a sheriff's policy, but all these sheriff's deputies will be trained and will have access to use this app on their phones or computers in responding to calls for service if so warranted. Huron Heights and Huron Ridge, the other large apartment complex on LaForge and Clark Road, are putting significant dollars into reinstalling a new security gate entry system that's activated by a card. And that is something that was required 25 years ago when we did that development agreement. Long story short, the property managers were not even aware that there existed this development agreement. And so once they became aware of it, they've done a great job of responding to my request, and that's going to be installed here probably in March, the new entry card activated system, and they're also actually putting about another, I don't know, Jason may know the numbers, tens of thousands of dollars into cleaning out that detention pond that in the past, when there was a major storm event, resulted in quite a bit of flooding over there on those apartments. So that's being addressed. That will eliminate that pretty much once and for all. In regards to other development of note, Jason and I attended a meeting with the fire marshal, the fire alarm specialist, Dan Kimball, and Dave Bellers, with the new owner of Underground Printing, who just purchased the Bozel building. And I have to admit, these guys are onto something. They have, I think, a couple of dozen locations. They're moving their entire operation from Ypsilanti Township, where they were leasing the property, to Bozel, which they've purchased. And for someone in their age group, a couple of guys that met in college, they came up with this idea of printing all kinds of different T-shirts and paraphernalia for universities, the college teams, professional teams. They're going to bring over with them on day one 160 employees. 160 employees, right from the get-go. The reason why we were involved is because that building had never been fire suppressed, and because it wasn't required due to the type of use. The change of use over to a printing triggered a whole new review in which they're going to spend significant dollars into fire suppression, which they are going to do. It's not a tug of war of, well, why do we have to, or we can't afford it. They're going to do it. But I think that Jason would agree that they were given a very, very warm reception and warm welcome by ourselves, and we introduced them to the supervisor, Brenda Stumbo, who gave them even more of a warmer welcome. And so I think it's going to be a great, they started hugging them, in violation of COVID. But anyways, we went ahead and we have that, in the works, and that's a done deal in terms of them coming here, and that's just and they expect to go over 200 employees really soon. They want to work with the township in having job fairs, and Michigan Works, just like Hercules or Pegasus. I guess Hercules goes to Pontiac. We get the name of Pegasus. But anyways, be that as it may, there are a lot of, I think our RNL expansion is now getting ready to really hit the ground running, so to speak. So there's a lot of job opportunities if you can parlay RNL, Hercules, Underground Printing. That gentleman made it quite clear they want to hire local people because they've already determined, like RNL has, that there's less absenteeism or lower if you hire people who live nearby, because they don't have to necessarily drive 40 miles in a snowstorm as opposed to being somewhere very, very nearby. That's a good thing for our local economy to have that type of opportunity for, and they're paying some very, very competitive wages.
Doug, you had shared with me that their concern was getting out there on Joanne Brinker Drive.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to include, like you just said, back when the Holiday Inn was going to locate over there, the Road Commission wanted them to put a light at the intersection of Joe Hall Drive at the time. And that somewhat made that deal impossible for Holiday Inn to make happen. Township officials tried to push the Road Commission to saying we think it'd be a better location for the light to go on Brinker Drive, a little bit further down. I talked to the representatives of that own the property at Washington Business Park. They simply cannot sell and develop that property if they have to bear the cost of a light themselves. We're thinking, I think Jason may have had some inside information, that now that I have confirmed that there is not a legal pathway to create a special assessment district at the location where the Road Commission wanted it to occur, being Joe Hall Drive, they are now willing to consider putting a light down at the at Brinker Drive, and Brenda's already reached out in an effort to see if we can leverage or make application for a TAP grant that could possibly pay for that signalization, because whenever you have someone locate that's bringing jobs to the area, and like they're going to be doing, 160 minimum, I think that's going to be an opportunity for maybe to be a win-win, not only for underground printing, but it could also spill over and benefit Washtenaw Business Park and develop maybe that area that was going to be a Holiday Inn at one time. So there's a lot of moving pieces going on simultaneously. And,
Well, I was going to update that we had a phone call today, Jason and I did, with a prospective developer, and it was on Joe Hall Drive. I think it was 4 lots. 4 lots, and it was a California company. They're currently in California, their offices as well as their light industrial manufacturing. And they are serious about coming to Ypsilanti Township. They had something going in Pittsfield and found out that the zoning wasn't appropriate. But Jason was following up on that. They're going to fill out an application for verification of zoning. But, I mean, I don't know, you guys. I just feel very excited about how people want to come to our community to develop. You know what I'm saying? So that says that, you know, they like the location, of course, but also I think we have friendly staff that, and boards and planning commissions that send the right signal that, you know, we want economic development, we want jobs. We all have always believed that a job is really a solution to a lot of the poverty issues, a good paying job with health care benefits and stuff. And like Doug spoke about, underground printing is huge. But they are so community-oriented. I was just pleasantly surprised when Doug introduced me to them and, you know, had me converse with them. They said, we get involved with the community. We get involved with arts and culture. We do a lot in Ann Arbor because they were in Scioto Township, but they are very excited to come here and appreciate, because it was the attorney, the building director, and the planning director were all meeting with them, and the fire, not fire marshal, what do you call him?
fire alarm specialist.
The fire alarm specialist, who was our fire marshal, just to give, you know, let him know that we really are excited about having them here. So I'm glad you provided those updates. And I'm glad I didn't tell you about that 9 o'clock meeting phone call, because you would have reported on that.
I got a few more still to go if you want me to.
It's good news. It's all good news.
I have questions. If he has more for real?
Yeah, I do.
does, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
He's
Go
for
ahead,
real.
Mr. Attorney, go ahead.
He's for
Stay
real.
until 7 o'clock. There's also, and you may have seen this, I've weighed in on behalf of the township in regards to the proposed liquor transfer of the In-N-Out Party Store down there in the corner of Shear and Harris Avenue. That's been a thorn for many years. They won't take down that, they have the windows blocked from inside. You can't see what's going on in there. Long story short, I've weighed in on that very strongly. I've given them the calls for service that have come from the Sheriff's Department over the last 3 years. I've given them copies of inspection reports by the community Office of Community Standards, as well as the fire, showing violations of the liquor code. And so I'm having a meeting by phone on Thursday with the appropriate people in Lansing to make it known right now that if they're going to transfer this liquor license, we want those issues of non-compliance dealt with prior to a transfer, or at some point in time, we're going to have to deal with it ourselves. But it doesn't seem that we have to always be the ones to go to court to resolve this. They asked us in a letter, they asked Clerk Rowe in a letter, is there any complaints of non-compliance? And so when she said that to me, then I responded, yes, there are. And so they now have those reports of noncompliance, and so I'm going to follow that up with it on Thursday. Right now, in the middle of, spent the day with the full-time officials. We have some scheduled negotiations with the new union on Friday. I've given you kind of like a mini version of War and Peace this past week over ongoing on a grievance that's going on that may go to arbitration, separate and apart from the contract negotiations. I also gave a lengthy letter, and I think it's worthwhile at least to give the board kind of at least a heads up that I need to do some more, digging in regards to what I think at some point in time is going to be an upcoming request here pretty quickly from the AAATA for a new millage vote. And while there is not clarity as to just how much of an increase it's going to be, I believe it's suffice it to say it's significant enough for us to have a very, very deep, concerted conversation, which we are supposed to have in accordance with that transportation funding agreement that was entered into back in 2014. Those kinds of decisions that have significant financial impact upon the township being a constituent member of the authority are supposed to be negotiated in good faith between the AAATA and the township, and the township was never intended to be a rubber stamp on whatever is being recommended to the voters, and especially on the level that they're talking about. I won't go into any more detail because we're getting kind of the vibe that maybe I've talked long enough. So I'll leave it alone at the moment beyond to say there's a lot going on.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Attorney Williams, I just have two little questions. First of all, is Brinkley Drive, is that behind over there by Joe Hall, somewhere up in there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
It's
going
right
to look
by
for
the,
it.
it's a post office. That's the first drive that goes in. There's the post office and Joanne Burger Drive.
So it's back.
Then Joe Hall.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Then James Ave.
I thought it was, thank you. Also, with Huron Heights, you mentioned another area over there. Could you say what the other area was that they're doing that security?
Well, there's two apartment complexes here in Heights and here on Ridge.
Huron Bridge,
They're
thank
located
you.
on
I know where that's at, yeah.
George and Clark.
Okay, can I ask you, just tell me the entry, I know people there and I'm going to get calls, okay. The entryway concerning going into Huron Heights, you're saying they're going to do a different gate system that will activate their license plates?
No,
Or look at their license plates?
no. Well, the one on Aspen Chase and the Villas, that's the
Chase's
former
Villa.
Haley properties on Gulf Side.
Villas, okay.
They're the ones that
Aspen, okay, got it.
are going to be installing the license plate network reader system.
That's the one, okay.
And they're going to be sharing or making that app available to the sheriff's deputies, but they can only use that information in accordance with a detailed policy that's been prepared by Sheriff Clayton. So his deputies can use that for their purpose. I'm sorry?
They use them for
What do you mean?
That's it.
Or if there's something that's happening and a car's leaving the scene of a crime, they can maybe get it in real time as to which car they're looking for. I'm sorry? They've had a tremendous amount of crime. That's why they actually at one time, what happened is that in regards to the McKinley property situation, they had actually came to the township board, township planning commission back in the 1990s, early maybe or 2000. They had requested a variance to actually build a guard entry that would stop you each time you went.
Okay.
And they built that, and it's still there. The problem was they quit using it or manning that as an active way that you would stop and check in. And then there, from time to time, there were complaints that traffic would back up at certain times of the day onto a golf site because of the number of cars, that being such a very, very large apartment complex. So they made the case that because of the technology that exists today versus what was available 25 years ago, then maybe they could achieve a better security environment by having the license plate reader, new security systems in place, and they also have security on the ground. It's also patrolling around as opposed to just doing that one checkpoint and everything. The Huron Heights, Huron Ridge, they're actually reinstalling a card entry activated system so that the residents will be able to come in, hit the card, up they go, the gate goes up, and they also have a way of allowing for vendors to contact the front desk, and they also have everything from the Ubers and DoorDash people. They have a way of doing it. So they're putting about $60,000 into those two new updated systems there. And I guess all that the point I would take away from all this is that none of this would not have happened but for the ongoing efforts of the township's development team, all the different departments, everybody involved, development agreements that were in place that some people didn't even know, quite frankly, existed at the apartment complex. All of you read about the flooding, I'm sure you remember the flooding that occurred over there at the Huron Heights, Huron Ridge a summer or two ago when there was a significant amount of flooding that occurred because the detention pond had not been dredged or cleaned out from the day it was built. And they're going down there now and actually rebuilding the entire detention pond and cleaning it all out. So it should be able to maintain the water when we have some more significant rain events, no doubt, this summer. So, again, any one of these can sometimes get your head spinning around. But when you put them all together, there's just an awful lot going on. And that's an update. But, again...
Okay. Yeah, just a little bit more. So with Huron Heights and Huron Ridge, what happens when a guest comes in? Did they explain that to you? And I understand they're trying to minimize. A lot of people know. Certain people are coming to this area. They don't even live in this area. Okay? And they have, it is, we want to welcome people to our area, but you get a lot of traffic. You ain't from here. And I guess I want to know, I think, what is that on Grove Road? The towers. Lakeshore, where they have the gate system. You have to be on the sheet of paper to get in. Is it going to be a system like that?
I think it's going to be...
We want to make it comfortable for people who do have guests to come there, but do they have something of that sort?
I'm not 100% sure as to how it's going to work with the guests, beyond the fact that they're going to have some kind of they cannot come in there without a gate-activated card. So they're going to have to ring the front desk, and they're going to have to make sure that the person that they're coming to visit, are in fact, yes, they can come in to release that. Okay. So that's all part of that. I did ask them to contact myself and Dave Bellers and Jason when they get ready to actually install the new gate system so that we are aware exactly as to how it works. And I think the questions that you have are the ones that we've been raising too, that we don't want people just to be able to come in there because they just ring a bell and say, I'm a guest. They have to be able to clearly identify who it is that they're going to be going to visit.
Okay, the last question would be at the Alpine Villa, when the system, let's say something occurs there, and for them to pick up that tag, will they actually pick up the tag, people that's going through, pick up the tag and see if someone has a record or can identify something or something like that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly when they come in there. I don't think that they're going. The idea is that if there's something occurs, they'll be able to go back and see exactly
who's been through there.
Yeah.
that evening or around that time.
It's not supposed to be used, that's what that policy comes in from Sheriff Clayton. It's not going to be used just to try and, figure out who's coming in and et cetera. I think it's going to be used, again, in accordance with his policy. The deputies have a very, very strict protocol that they are going to be following as to how it's going to be used. Again, it's going to be on private property, and you're at a point where I think that with the, 2,000 calls we were getting over there, the sheriff cannot respond to those calls. This might be a tool that will allow them to at least be used somewhat judiciously whenever the opportunity requires someone to respond quickly. And again, I think that they're all going to be trained on this system, and I look forward to maybe getting more updates from Lieutenant Shane through the Township's Police Services Committee once that system has been installed. But it's going to be installed in the next few months there at the McKinley's, at the Aspen Chase, and at the Villas.
Okay, thank you, Attorney.
They have done a tremendous job of also, they've evicted, they said, quite a few people that they think were, as few people are responsible for a lot of the problems in many cases, and so they've been pretty diligent about finding out that there were a number of people that had been leasing the apartments in person A's name, but the people living there were really person B. So in other words, a lot of the people were leasing apartments in their name, but they were not actually living in the apartment. And so they've tightened up their policies of, and again, this is, and we're scheduled for our first quarterly meeting. I think Heather's got it on her book for sometime in early April. And we're going to have a quarterly meeting with the management of McKinley Properties every 3 months until we feel comfortable that they stabilize those properties, because too much time, effort, and money and resources have been expended on some of these properties. And again, I didn't get into it, but I am going to get into it. There one right now at the Acclaim at Ford Lake is another one down here next to Schooner Cove. It's also, I've asked for information about. That's the one that's also got record number levels of calls for service. And the people that own that apartment complex are located in California. So I'm asking for some help at the board level to try to arrange for some kind of a Zoom meeting maybe at some point in time. Because if McKinley Properties has stepped up and Huron Heights has stepped up, it's time for, and the old Lake in the Woods, Lake Point stepped up over the years. It's time for the apartment complex to step up as well.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Winters.
All right, have you completed your report, Mr. Winter?
I just completed my opening statement.
Thank you very much.
closing
No, really, I'm kidding.
I have my closing argument later.
You could add to your wheel there, business registration and recreational amenities, I think. But,
We're saving that for.
That's a good point as I listen to the conversation. It looks like this was developed at a time when there was crisis. And as we start to move, like we moved out of crisis, that the thinking has to expand beyond just stabilization, but the idea of thriving. And it makes me think of like green space and community green space, and I've been harping on green space, especially in the, in the opportunity index zones, that what I see is that if we don't have some thinking around shared protection of green spaces that are public spaces. For a long time, these properties have paid for school properties and paid for things, and over time, there should be some benefit when they're not in use for that. That doesn't change the dynamic of that. If Ann Arbor can try to buy up 250 some acres of farmland using federal grant money to protect themselves, why wouldn't we be thinking forward about making sure that all neighborhoods have green space and the idea that it could expand? I really think we need to think about that, because otherwise, if Ann Arbor's buying up farmland to protect a donut around itself, where will the pressure come the pressure will come on us and on the city of Ypsilanti unless we're thinking in ways to push back. Our residents deserve green space as well, especially if it's green space that they have paid for over long periods of time to take care of, whether it's a park or whether it's a school property. Their taxes have funded that for a very long time, especially in the well-established neighborhoods that are in the opportunity zones. And so rather than other people dictating density, 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 I think we have to be very forward-thinking on that, because that doesn't seem like eco-justice is a new hot term. And the largest entity buying up farmland to protect itself
From us, I think.
is concerning, especially if there's federal dollars that would, I mean, if they get a grant to do that, 250 some acres, it seems hard to me to believe that maybe a federal grant should be helping us protect unused school properties or other things like that. And maybe the only way to do that is to ask the question. So I love the fact that you've got this here, but I would love to see us look at how that could be expanded beyond just stabilization. Once we're out of crisis and we're stable, what do we see that being for the betterment of our residents?
If I could just add one comment to what Debbie said, if it's okay, and this may be something the board has to deal with at a board level. Years ago, the voters in this county approved a millage to buy development rights to maintain green space, throughout different parts of Washington County. To my knowledge, that money has been used to buy a lot of development rights in Superior Township, in Ann Arbor Township, maybe even Pittsfield Township. I am not aware of $1 of those funds ever being used to purchase development rights in Ypsilanti Township, which the intent was to maintain this open space, and maybe not in the same way as in the neighborhood, but if you go down Prospect as you go into Superior Township, there is a large open space here. I think it's called La Forge Preservation, whatever it is right now. The county has used our millage dollars to purchase those development rights in every township around Ann Arbor, except in Ypsilanti Township. And so I don't know where they stand right now on that, but it's another example of maybe where we need to be very, very more aggressive with the county, because again, we have contributed a tremendous amount of dollars to that millage, and I don't think we have received anything back in return.
No.
Brenda may know about it, but I don't.
No, we haven't received any. We tried to. Karen Lovejoy Rowe and I tried to get several properties, and there was a lot of reasons why they couldn't do it. But it's just inequity is what it is. And they're building a hedgerow around Ann Arbor, and then our workers got to get there to work in Ann Arbor because that's our, economic base. And so to do that, they want to increase our millage by 400% from AAATA because they need a workforce, and they want to decrease the number of vehicles coming into their community. I mean, it's exhausting fighting all these things, but we will keep showing up and being heard and asking and being involved, in a lot of these issues, because I try to attend as many meetings as we can with the Road Commission, County Board of Commissioners, Public Health, when they come up. But there's a lot of meetings to go to in which they discuss this. So we just got to keep putting ourselves at the table.
I don't want my comments to be dismissive of the hard work that's happened. You can see when you're in the neighborhoods, when we've been going door to door, you can see the efforts of the stabilization, like homes improvements. You can see the Habitat for Humanity. You can see, like block by block, house by house, what's happening. So I don't want to diminish that, but I also don't want us to think, I want us to think bigger than that.
Yeah, you're
So
right.
thank you.
All right. Do we have a meeting? Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, I found the agenda.
What,
Number 2 is just the request of,
Oh, Madam Chair, I just had a statement. I think, and this goes to Debbie's, trustee Swanson's point, I think our ultimate goal would be to be as sufficient as possible using that farmland to make ourselves, or land, to make ourselves sufficient so that we don't have to depend on outside sources, so that ultimately we can become more of a thriving township, to the extent that down the road, if we have a district to where we have a grocery store, let's say, for instance, that we can provide food for, that would be one of the goals, that piggybacks on what Trustee Swanson said.
so you talk about growing food for the grocery store.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
where we could become
Yeah, that's-
self-sufficient.
right. That's a good point. There's lots of things that, we can do, but I do think that we should get our fair share of tax dollars. And I do not think that we do get our fair share of tax dollars. So we just keep highlighting it, and, they kind of told me off at the last Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners meeting because I asked a question, and just, the only thing I asked them is, if they're going to make a decision to enter into contracts with people, just contact our planning department so we're aware and can verify the zoning, but somehow that hit a nerve or two. And I did also point out that we are the 8th most segregated county in economically, I would argue possibly racially as well, but that's not written anywhere, so I can't say it. So, Washtenaw County is the 8th most economically segregated county in the United States of America. And I said, we got to change that statistic. We got to change that statistic, and it's only fair. All the buzzwords they use and, politically expedient words, but action is different. And so we're just asking for more action to, help our community they deserve it. We absolutely deserve it, but we also need help in some areas, and the policies that they use create the economic division. So they need to review their policies as well. But anyways, their meeting's tomorrow. I'll go back, and we'll just keep going back and asking for things. That's what we have to do. We'll keep doing it. The next item is the installation of the speed humps on Grand Boulevard in the amount of $52,000. It used to be 70%, and once they changed it to 51%, then the residents were able to get the petitions. We actually recently walked, Debbie and I walked that area. That whole, it needs to be rehauled because there's a big parking space, and I guess that's the boulevard part of it, but it really should be looked at holistically and improving that area as well as several areas that we have walked that have flooding, and hopefully the dollars are going to do whatever they're going to do with climate change in Ann Arbor, in Washtenaw County, improving the flooding areas, which is what Evan Pratt has asked for, will help our neighborhoods in the opportunity index a lot. And it'll increase the value of their homes. And you can't walk it because it's underwater in the sidewalks. And so we're going to continue to, that's part of the asks that we had talked about is, and the ARPA funds, the comments that we have received are usually for the roads, the sidewalks, and the flooding in the areas that we have been in. So it kind of, it makes sense. But we have to, if we could parlay that with other entities Evan Pratt has asked the County Board of Commissioners for allocation of funds for areas that are flooding, and we had it on the west side, and Apple Ridge and Rue de Ville, Rue Willette, they actually had flooding, and FEMA came in, and the Ypsilanti area as well. YCUA, we've submitted for a number of the improvements that came to us and other things that are on their asset management. We submitted to State Representative Peterson to see if we can get it in the, how many billions did they get the state of Michigan for infrastructure? It was billions. So we've submitted that list as well to try to parlay and get, and then our water and sewer rate won't go up if we don't have to do so much bonding. So it just has such a cascading effect on our residents. So we'll keep asking for it, but this is what they want. I do think we should look at long-term, but speeding is a problem there. Yeah, very unsafe. The next item is a request to approve circuit court litigation to abate public nuisances by padlocking, and Mr. Winters spoke to that earlier. Normally, there's a few pictures and stuff, and I'm kind of acting as a community standards director, and I didn't put but you can't put pictures in on this, can you, Doug? Anyways, when there's public nuisances, I'll try to add additional pictures to show the public nuisance. But these two are drug-related houses that the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department has provided the necessary information to the attorneys for padlock for a year.
In fact, one has already been resolved in the form of an order declaring it to be a public nuisance. That's the one at 1635 Parkwood. Very disruptive to the neighborhood. Same as Lynn Street. That one is in court right now. And I think Stan sent me a note saying he missed the attorney's report and wanted me to do it again.
No.
I did.
Okay.
Are there any questions on those two circuit litigations?
Yes, he is cruel.
So Doug, should we take out the 1635 Parkwood?
No, it still has to be authorized because we still have follow-up to do.
Okay.
It's just that we have been very quickly successful in getting that resolved with the attorney that got involved on behalf of the property owners, and it's a good result for the neighborhood.
Oh,
We're still going to have to oversee what's going on over there.
The neighbors will be very happy. The next item is request to cancel the May 3rd board meeting because we have an election. And budget amendment number 3. Other questions on anything? Nope. We still have a few minutes. You want to do board reports? Township board member report? Jimmy?
Madam Chair. Yeah, I just want to say that Attorney Winters had mentioned Habitat for Humanity and our partnership, and a year ago I was appointed to that board of directors, and I asked Rob Nisley earlier today if he could give me a brief report of township properties that have been sold. I know it was a concern of this board that they had been hanging on to a lot of properties and not doing anything with them. So in the last 6 months, Habitat did sell 5 homes, and they have 8 more planned in the next 6 months. So they are starting to finally have progress on that. But I have been making, actually last week was Apple Ridge on Peachcrest. They had a closing there. I can get you the full report if you'd like, and email it to the board. But I've been making sure I stay on top of them, make sure they're making steady progress. I know that the pandemic definitely slowed a lot of folks down, but now that we're kind of in a new normal of this pandemic, I'd like to see more progress. So I like that they are starting to make progress. So I also want to make mention that Derek Jackson and the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department, they started a violence intervention task force probably about 4 to 6 months ago. They just asked me to join that task force about a month ago. And they're trying to come up with solutions as we enter into the summer months again. As you know, that crime, violence picks up. And so they're trying to come up with solutions. And as I hear more of what they actually want to do, I'll keep the board apprised on that. And then I just want to make a comment. I actually only had those two things, but Attorney Winters brought up that AATA, and that's just, that's concerning because our residents they really can't afford any more tax increases. That's why this township board made sure we kept our tax rates the same since 2013. And this is just, especially what they're asking, that's even more than the regional transit that was asked before, which was 1.5 mils. So I know this township board will stay on top of making sure our residents are taken care of properly. So that was my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Stan, do you have other?
Just a quick thing, I just would add that we, our applications for our election in May will be going out within the next 7 or so days. So if you all start to hear that, they're real, they're hitting the doors, so that's my update. I can do it later. You want me to do it later?
I didn't hear what you said.
You want me to do the ARPA thing?
No, that's totally up to you. My turn? Thank you. Okay, well, I attended, some may know, the governor came through down to the Blackstone bookstore. It was very successful. It's just nice to see her pop in certain areas sometimes. She did not campaign. It was just a talk with some people. It was kind of crowded because it's a little small store, but for the time she spent there, I think it was nice for her to come through. Also, what else? Trustee down there, Wilson might have to help me with this. I'm sorry, Jimmy. We attended the African American Leaders Unionship.
So did Stan, right?
And yeah, I'm going to say that. Also, Stan was there. Jimmy, myself, Ronnie, and who was the other one? John Newman. Trustee John Newman. Thank you for coming. It's very interesting. Had some heavy hitters there from the UAW. Got a chance to meet the new director, who was a woman, Regent 1. When she introduced herself, I was amazed because it's never been a woman in Region 1. So it wasn't long. The program wasn't long. It was just an introduction. Might have took about 45 minutes, an hour. So I thank you, everyone that came out, and to Jimmy, who plays a big part in the UAW. Also, I just want to send my condolences out to Angie Robinson. I've known her brother. He used to work at University of Michigan. I know the Robinson family, as everyone else does. They're connected with huge families in this district, the Frys and the Lewises, which are huge. And so I had talked to her briefly, but I plan on attending that service briefly tomorrow, viewing from 5 to 7, and then the funeral. Won't be able to make the funeral, but I definitely will be there tomorrow. And that's it for me.
All right, thank you.
Just,
Trustee Newman?
don't have much to add, just other than piggybacking on what Trustee Peterson said, in the fact that I am a member of the public advisory group that was with the AATA. So I'm disappointed as to how that all turned out, but I can still, attend those meetings and voice my opinion.
Do you know, when we met with them, they said that they were going to meet with the city of Ypsilanti. Do you know how that meeting went?
No, I didn't know. Yeah, I know they're scheduling meetings with the communities, and
Yeah, I guess we were the first one.
yeah. So I don't know when that's scheduled with Ypsilanti.
Ms. Kaiser, did you want to say?
Yes. I have a question with,
Give your name.
I'm sorry, Arloa Kaiser, 1421 Melvin Street. My question is, with AATA, and they want more money out of us, how many actually actual bus stops have been canceled in the township. I know several on Grove Road that I know of. So that, why
Yeah.
should we pay more if we're getting less from them?
And, right, Ms. Kaiser, I think they're proposing more, but but to go from 0.7 to 2.5, like, that's ridiculous. But anyways, this board, they did a presentation here, and we all said, no, this is not the time, renew it, don't increase it. And they came back with a large increase, so, anyway.
Can we vote against it?
Yeah, well, we asked them not to even present that but they're moving, fast, aren't they, John? They didn't care what we said. Basically, they didn't care at all what we said, so.
All they care about is Ann Arbor, not Ypsilanti. And my understanding, we don't have a lot of people that use the bus. I don't use it myself, but that's what I've heard. And with
I don't
these-
even think Ann Arbor will, this is a large increase. It really is a big increase on all the communities, so I'll be surprised, I'll be interested to see what happens. But in the report that John sent us, which was a different report than when they gave to us, which they wouldn't give us a copy, but it said that it will reduce cars going into Ann Arbor by 7,000 trips per day. So the goal is just to keep the vehicles out of Ann Arbor.
So basically, I am supporting Ann Arbor.
Basically. And there's 7,000 workers at U of M, that use the bus system. But
But
most
doesn't,
people drive. If they have a car, they're going to drive. I just hate to say that, but that's a truth.
but doesn't so I have heard, doesn't University of Michigan give bus passes to some of their employees?
I think they do.
That, it's been a while, but that's what I had heard.
Yeah. I don't know, but we'll find out. Anyways, I don't know if we can protest. I don't know what we can do, but we have to object loudly to this increase, because we didn't increase anything in order to keep things stable. This is not the time. We're just coming out of a major pandemic, and I don't even think we're out of it yet, but this is the worst time to do it, and they want to do it in August. Is that right, John? That's what they said? Yeah.
I believe so. But I think that if it does go to millage, we just have to get the word out as to what it really is.
Or see if we can pull out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
That's a legal question that, we'll have to look at. John, do you have anything else, honey?
That was all.
Mr. Newman? Sorry. Trustee Swanson?
I don't have any report that people haven't already said, but I'm wondering a little bit about like committees and if we're on committees that are not part of our township duties like we did, when we organized and we put people on committees. I feel a little bit like if we're on a committee that someone's asked us to be on, and they're asking us to be on it like as a township board member, it's hard because you're splicing like who you are and what you do. Anybody can be on any committee. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if people are specifically asking us to be on a committee and they know we are township elected officials, if that's the capacity we're there sitting in, then I think there is a burden of each of us to come back and make sure that we're all informed really detailedly about what's going on. Because if they think we're representing the township, sometimes things come back and I hear, well, the township would never go for that or whatever. I'm like, well, how would you know that? Like, nothing's been brought to us. And I am a little worried about the dynamic of what feels to me, and again, I haven't been doing this role very often, but it feels a little bit like there are ways that organizations try to work around the leadership that we have here. So instead of, like in my mind, and maybe I'm thinking of it wrong, you need something or you want something to me, it feels like you would go to the supervisor, and the supervisor would clarify some things and then distribute things to us, or the clerk, because when things come in through that framework, the supervisor and the clerk have been very good at keeping all of us informed of opportunities and stuff. If people go to like one of us and we say yes, then the rest of us don't know about that opportunity. And if they're coming to, because there's a reason, people are going to come to us because we're elected officials. I just feel like that, I didn't even think about when we were developing the ethics policy, but I do feel it kind of falls into that category. If we're there, it's very hard to separate yourself from this idea that you are a resident serving as a resident, or are you there and someone's asked you to be there because you are an elected official who has some authority and some power. And so I don't know the answers. I'm brand new at this, but I do think it's worth us all thinking about that. What does it look like? And if we're serving in a capacity that's a township, you know, connected to people us wanting to be there, what are the rest of us expecting from each other when that happens? So I don't know the answer to that, but I do think it's worth us thinking about, having some conversation about.
Okay,
Madam.
that's a good point, yes, trustee.
No, it's
Ms. Kaiser?
Yes, Arlo Kaiser, 1421 Melvin Street. I just want you to know that when we had neighborhood watch meetings, I think there was more of a dialogue between the people and the board member who was there. And it really worked out quite well. We were kept posted with things that were going around in our little neighborhood areas, and that, you know, with a pandemic, that has changed so much. But that was a great thing for the community
Right, okay.
on a one-to-one basis with the board and that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would just apologize for my brief update. Need some caffeine. Our attorney's report was great. But I would like to update the board and everyone on our Ypsilanti Township ARPA committee. We continue to meet, and we have 4 additional committee meeting dates internally scheduled for the month of March, and we'll aim to begin scheduling public meetings in the following months. The township staff and leadership continue to distribute masks and COVID-19 test kits to residents. The areas that are identified on the maps up here, this is the opportunity index, and that area is highlighted in blue. If you transcribe that over to the opportunity index, these are the highest areas of, they're the lowest areas of opportunity. And so our leadership and staff really decided to focus in on those areas to begin with. There will be one more picture that has little yellow crossovers of all the areas that we've done already.
Going to show the area that has been.
Completed, that have had door-to-door masks given out. And with the masks, if people were home, we would, offer them test kits. And in the flyers, it also offered them an opportunity to give us a call, and we would drive out and deliver the test kits, and/or they could come into the township, whichever worked for them. So of all the blue areas, this is the township and the highest opportunity areas, and all of the yellow covered space we have distributed masks and test kits to that large area. In total, just over 100,000 masks have been distributed to residents at their homes. In addition to the mask distribution, approximately 2,300 COVID-19 test kits, and those contain two tests per kit. So a total of 4,600 tests have been delivered to our residents as well. The no-cost testing site at the Ypsilanti Township Community Center, we're really excited. They're going to continue through the month of March because of the success and the location of the facility. It's been a really great uplifting need for that area. The Ypsilanti Township ARPA Committee, we will be making public dates for public meetings that'll be held both via Zoom and in person in different locations across the township. The ARPA committee is also committed to hearing from other organized groups within the community, and any group interested in presenting to the Ypsilanti Township ARPA Committee can connect with us by emailing arpa@ytown.org. And then from there, we'll work to set up a date and a time that works for the group to present to us. And additionally, the ARPA Committee continues to learn about and understand the final rule that goes into effect in March, and observe other ways that different municipalities are utilizing their funds and taking calls and emails from residents who are sharing their ideas. Each committee member has received several calls and emails from residents that have come about from the mask distribution, and we've had great conversations around the topic. The community engagement piece is going really well, and all of us are very thankful, again, to serve on this committee for our board.
Well, question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
When when the residents come with the ideas for the spending, can they quantify what their ideas are? Or do they quantify?
Generally speaking, Trustee Newman, as Supervisor Stumbo alluded to earlier, the residents that we've heard from, they have general ideas about spending the things in roads, curbs, sidewalks, gutters, areas for flooding, infrastructures type things. Does that answer your question? I guess when you say quantify, I personally have not had a number next to a thing. But I also think that's a really hard thing to quantify. When you're talking about $9.4 million, it's a big number that we're not used, that the general person isn't used to talking about numbers in that amount. And then also when you're discussing infrastructure projects, it's really hard to know, as a, school teacher who's really, I'm not picking on you, Debbie, I'm talking about my husband. He might not know what it costs to pave a road for 1 mile, just for an example.
I think if we can quantify and try and be as efficient and, do as much as we can with the ARPA funds, then that will get us closer to, the goal of everybody getting what they want.
I will just share that I send out to trustees Swanson and Peterson some other municipalities and their pages on their ARPA funds and different things like that. But something that you might be interested in, Trustee Newman, is the city of Ann Arbor has a quantified, quiz or survey that they've done, and they've put a dollar amount next to the things so that when people fill out that form, they're able to they actually allocate dots. That's how they simplified it. I can send that. I'm happy to send that to you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to comment on Trustee Rowe's report. I just want to thank you, Heather. Outstanding report. I personally, as a board member, am so proud of this project that we have done. When you see the numbers talk. So I'm just very grateful, and I will spread the news. When they ask me, personally, Gloria, what did they do? Well, they've done an outstanding job, everyone. And also, just to mention Stan, Treasurer Aldridge, you did respond to the call. That's just one little thing we left out. We asked you to respond of your thoughts, and I think maybe he was the only one that responded, and we want to thank you for that, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Well, we're going to adjourn real quickly here for 10 minutes, and we'll start back up at 7 o'clock.